Hi all, welcome to Tech Forum. In this video, let us see the details on render conditions in AEM. How to show or hide UI elements through render conditions. Okay, what is render condition? Render condition is a mechanic to indicate if the Granite UI component should be rendered or not. AEM provides an easy way to hide or show any elements on TouchUI authoring interface through Granite Render condition. AEM enabled with many out-of-the-box render conditions to manage the UI elements based on different conditions. Example, privileges, paths, etc. Let's say some of the UI elements should be visible only for admin user, or it should be visible only under specific path. You can build custom Granite render conditions if required to determine if the Granite UI component should be displayed or not, based on the custom logic. To enable the render condition to an element, we should be creating a node, unstructured node with the name Granite render condition as a child node, and we can associate the render conditions. We can see that how to do that. If you see here, the render conditions can be associated to the Granite UI components, and at the runtime or rendering, during the rendering, the render conditions are evaluated, and if all the conditions are met, the specific UI element is shown. Like if not, the specific element is hidden. Typical example would be rendering a submit button based on whether the current user has a privilege to create or modify a resource. If the user has the specific privilege, display the submit button or hide the button. The actual decision making logic for the render conditions are pluggable. Now AEM enabled with some basic render condition elements or components. So those are available under this path: Granite UI, Lips, Granite UI, components, Coral Foundation, render conditions. If I go and show that, yeah, so if you see here, this is the path, is having and, feature, not, or, privilege, and symbol. These are all the basic elements, you can use it. And the condition that renders the component when all the sub conditions are deciding the component should be rendered. Means you can define multiple sub conditions. All the conditions should be met to display the element. Now if you see here, I have a button enabled with render condition, then but the basic type is and. Then I have two symbol conditions as a child condition. These two conditions should be met to display this specific button. Now another one basic type is feature. So feature will be used to render the elements based on the sling feature flag. So here if you see, you can specify the feature name based on the feature flag condition. The specific element is displayed or hidden. Now another one is not. That not means the condition, all the sub conditions would be false. If you say I am keeping a not here and I am having two child condition, both this should be false to render this specific element, the button. Now not is the parent, then I have two child elements. You can have multiple conditions, but all should be false to display this. Now another one is or. So or is opposite to and. So at least one of the sub conditions should be true, so that the element will be rendered. If you see like same thing here, I have a base condition as R, then I have two child condition. Either one of the condition is true, this element will get displayed. Another one is privilege. So means if I have the specific privilege has privileges, so that is the method will be used to validate. If I have the specific privilege, that element will be displayed. You can specify multiple privileges. Example, JCR write, JCR all, JCR read, or whatever. Like based on the privileges, it will be displayed. Here if you see, you can specify the path. Then what kind of privileges? If this condition is met, then that particular element will be displayed. Now another one is a symbol condition. So it will take a simple boolean, mainly say expression. Finally it will be converted to boolean. Based on the boolean value, the element will be displayed or hidden. So just you need to specify expression based on true or false, the element will be rendered. Now let us see some of the existing render conditions and scenarios in AEM. For that, what I will do is I will go to some of the existing render conditions here. If I go here, yeah, so this is the one. I will go and yeah, if you see here, there is a asset details. There is a lot of render conditions are there. If actions, if you go any actions, if you say let me take an example of quick publish, right? So now there is a granite render conditions. So it's having multiple conditions. If you see here, this is AND condition. So this all conditions should be met to display this quick publish. First one is main asset. It should be a main asset. Then another one is like checkout. So it's saying like whether checkout also again is a checkout is having two conditions. The element the asset should not be checked out, and also if it is checked out, it should be checked out by the current user. So it's a, again and or either one of the conditions should be met. Either it can be, it should not be checked out. If checked out, it can be only by the current user. Same way like a privilege. So it's saying like the user should be having the replicate action to that specific path. Other one example, maybe if I go here, like I can go to this one. This is again meta editor based render conditions. If I go here, yeah, if we go and do this, yeah, here also again lot of render conditions. If I go to check-in, again like the check-in is enabled based on this all condition. Only one asset is checked in by current user and can check in. There is multiple conditions. So based on that, the check-in button will be displayed. So all these render conditions, actual render conditions, if you see here, it is referred from another location, libs dam GUI components admin render conditions can check in. So you can refer those locations like dam. If I go to here, I can find the set of actual render conditions. Even we can use this render conditions if required. Yeah, if you see here, there is a set of render conditions. Has annotations, on page, has subassets, on lot of render conditions. You can refer this. If you go here, then another set of render conditions. If I go to this, yeah, you can see render conditions. Yeah, multiple render condition here also. Can modify, then like has analytics, can replicate. Yeah, you can refer this. Let me open one of the render condition. If I go to can modify, if you see here, there is a JSP. This all out of the box render conditions are developed based on JSP. So here the logic is there. So this is a condition to determine if the current user has privileges to modify the given page. So yeah, they are getting the configuration. Then here if you see, they are identifying whether the user has the required permission to the modify action. So then finally, if we come down, yeah, they are setting this attribute render condition dot class dot get name simple render condition. This is the boolean flag. Based on the value, the UI element will be displayed or hidden. Yeah. So maybe like let me go to the UI. Yeah, you can see multiple options like edit properties, copy. This all like controlled through the render conditions. So if I show you another example of this one, if I go to, yeah, let me edit this page. If I go to this options, if you see like lock page, publish, unpublish, there is multiple options. So what I'm going to do is I am going to lock this page. Let's say lock. Now if I go back again, like there is the publish and unpublish options are hidden. So it means it's based on the render condition. Those two options are based on rendered based on this lock option. Like if it is locked, those options will not be displayed. So if I go to that actual, you can go to, this is the actual conditions. If I go there, okay, if I go here, yeah, here libs WCM core content editor, yeah, header items are, yeah, here this is the place that condition is configured. Yeah, if you go and see here, this is the publish option. If you go here, there is a Granite Render condition. So the render condition has two conditions. One is can replicate. If the user has access to replicate, it will be displayed. but this condition is again AND, so other condition also should be met. Now not is launch resource. If it is a resource is launch resource, also it will not be displayed. Then again is locked. If the content is locked, again the publish button is disabled. So our case the content is locked, so that's why we are not seeing the publish button. Same thing for unpublish also. So you can see the same conditions here. So another one is like ACS Commons having a custom render condition. It will work based on the path. If you can configure like based on the path, the UI elements will be displayed. You need to specify path pattern, example like this, like path content geometry. So if the path is matching with this pattern, the specific UI element will be displayed. Let us now see how to use the render conditions to hide a UI element for a custom UI dialog. So for that, what I am doing is I am like going to my project. Let me go back to my project. Yeah, render conditions. So I am having a dialog in my page component. Then just I am adding a field called dynamic field. So it's of type text field. Now in the dynamic field, I have a render conditions enabled, Granite Render condition. If you see, the primary type of this node is unstructured. Resource type is R. So Granite UI components, Coral Foundation render conditions R. So I am going to either one of the condition is matching, so that particular field will be displayed. So I have multiple conditions for the mode. So first one is like param. So I can use the parameter, the URL parameter. I am saying if the param dot enable the value is true, this particular field should be displayed. This is of type simple conditions. Now not only param, you can use other values also. Headers you can use. So maybe let me quickly show you. Yeah, you can use the header. Any header value you can match it. If it is a header, user agent is there, or like a specific user agent or whatever. All the headers you can match it. Also you can use the request path info, suffix, selection, selector string, or all those values. The request path you can use it. Also you can use the cookie also. So based on those you can configure it based on your requirement. Now another one is privilege. So here what I am configuring is, so the path, this path content render conditions USEN should be, the user should be having a right access. So in that case display that particular field. So this is the way the privileges, you can specify multiple privileges here, because I am only showing the JCR right, or you can specify whatever the privileges required. Now another one is like I am going with the existing render condition. If you see is locked, so I am using the is locked. This is the existing, the out of the box, or like AEM the render conditions. It used to identify whether it is whether the particular page or the asset is locked. Now, but my case is if it is not locked, then I should be displaying the field. So I am putting a not condition here. So it's a not unstructured node again, not. Then under that I am creating a is locked, and here I am passing the path. Now another one is like I want to have a custom parameter, custom render conditions, that is render conditions custom sample custom para. I am just passing a parameter is rendering enabled. If it is true, it will be displayed. False, it will be disabled. So either one of the conditions. I will show you like how to do this. If I go to the specific dialog, let me go. Yeah, if there is a new tab create a render condition, it is disabled. This means like none of the conditions are matching. So maybe like let me go with one first one maybe. So if I go param enable equal to true, so I will add one additional parameter here, enable equal to true. So yeah, then if I go back here, yeah, you can see the field is enabled now. So now what I am going to do is I will keep false here, so that's okay. Now I will match the second condition. If the user has a privilege, the right privilege. So for that, this is my user. If I go here, go to content, now yeah, render conditions US EN, the user not having the modify permission. So I am enabling the modify permission. Now if I go back here, so I'm putting this false, so now based on the second condition it will be displayed. If I go here, yes, it's displayed based on this permissions. Now if I another one, if I want to remove that, yeah, if I remove this, another one, what I can do is, let me go and find the next condition. It is like is locked. The path is configured with this specific one, the content render conditions US EN, and a not condition. If you see here, so what does that mean is, like, if the page specified in the condition is not locked, the element will be rendered. So what I will do is go and do a see, it's already the page is locked, so unlock I will do. Now if I go back here, this is again false, I removed the permission, but still it will display it now here. Yes, this condition is matched. Now another scenario is like you can override any of the existing UI elements to apply restrictions based on render conditions. Example, like I want to display admin UI element based on the user group. So example, like the publish and unpublish button should be enabled only if the user is part of the administrator group. So let me show you that. If I go here, I am not administrator group because I already enabled it. If I go to this one and so this is admin user, yeah, I have this lock this page. Yeah, if you see here, I have a publish and unpublish, but my requirement is like this publish and unpublish button should be displayed only if the user is part of the administrator group, admin or administrator group. Now the basic that configuration is over here. If I go to this, the actual implementation is here, libs, yeah. If you go here, like there is some Granite render conditions, can replicate, then all those things. This is the same thing we were seeing earlier. Based on this render conditions, that publish or unpublish buttons, both are same, is getting displayed. Now what I want to do is I want to add one additional conditions so that it will be displayed only if the user is a admin user. So for that, what I need to do is I want to override here. What I did is, like under apps, WCM, if you go to this, I overlaid that core, content, editor, JCR content, items, content header, items, header bar, then again, okay, this one, yeah. So I overlaid that publish and this one, then Granite render conditions. So here see can replicate, and I added another render condition is administrator. So you can use this out of the box or existing render condition of this type, libs, fd, fm, GUI, components, admin, render conditions, groups. So it will check for if the user is part of the specific group. Now I am going and configuring the group saying administrator. If the user is part of this administrator group, this publish should be enabled. The same case with unpublish also. If the user is part of the administrator group, this would be displayed. Now if I go back to here, I logged in with the non-admin user here, my custom ID. So if I go back and check it here, I am not having the admin and those buttons enabled. Now what I will do is I will go back here, I will add administrator group to this specific user. If I save this, if I go back and refresh, yeah, if I go back, if I do this, yeah, now if you see here, publish, unpublish, all those conditions are enabled now. So it was earlier disabled, now the user is part of the administrator, this is enabled. But if I go and remove the user from again administrator, so you won't have those options. So you will not have those options. Yeah, if I remove that, even that render conditions, so he will have that option, but because I overridden that. Yeah. Now let us see now how to develop a custom render conditions. So I am developing a very simple custom render condition. You can write your own logic. So based on some data, configured data, resource data, the field should be enabled or disabled. So for that, what I did is like, go to Eclipse. I created a servlet, resource based servlet. Any resource name you can give it here. I just given some random name, render conditions, custom sample, custom param. Then I created a do get. Then like just you need to set this attribute, request dot set attribute, render condition dot class dot get name. What is the render condition type? I am going with the new simple render condition. You can use any of those. Now I should be passing a parameter. Now I am putting a simple logic here. What I am doing is in the same dialog, if I go back to my custom dialog, if I go back to my render conditions, if you see the custom param, I have some value I kept like is render condition enabled. So that value I am using it here, and based on that value I am sending true or false. If it's enabled, it is true or false. Now based on that, the UI will be displayed. Now if I go back here and refresh, because it should not be displayed now. All other conditions are false. Okay, one of the condition is true. So I need to. Okay, give me a moment. Yeah, the page is locked or something. Okay, I need to do it. Okay. Now if I go back and refresh, yeah, it's not displayed. Now what I will do is I will try to use my custom render condition. So for that I will make this value as true. I'm going and saving this. Okay, done. Refresh it now. Okay, yeah, now it's a display. Okay, the render condition can be used along with the Sling feature flag. We already discussed. There is a basic component feature flag based render condition. So the condition that decides based on Sling's feature flag. The UI fields can be enabled or disabled based on the feature flag configurations. So I am not going to explain that here, as already I have a blog on that. You can refer this Sling feature flag for continuous integration. So this will talk about how to use the Sling feature flag, and also how to configure the Sling flag feature flag with render condition. Now another one is like, maybe let's say like we want to build a custom Granite components, or like we want to understand how the existing Granite components are handling these render conditions. So you want to use, if you want to use these render conditions in your Granite component, you can use this specific method, get render condition from the component helper. So to get the render condition of the current resource. If you see here the component context, then get render condition, then resource, then false means whether you want to cache this result, the render condition result, false, or then true or false you can do, then check. So it will give you the result whether the render condition is enabled or not for this specific component. The another one point to note here is like the render condition mechanic, it won't hide the resource transparently. What does that mean is, if you enable the render condition for a resource, when you are getting the resource through the Sling resource or resource resolver API, that still returns the resource, so it won't be disabled. Yeah, because the reason is like those APIs won't consider this Granite render condition configurations. So due to this, like your component implementation should be explicitly take care of these render conditions. So let's say for example there is a tab panel component. It will loop through the data child elements to display the tab panel. But each individual tab panel should be checked whether the render condition is enabled and it is allowing to display that specific element. If you see this piece of code here is iterating through those data sources, child data sources, but it is still checking whether the get render condition, whether this resource is enabled through the render condition or disabled through the render conditions. So let me show you here. Yeah, if I go to this specific component here, yeah, so there is like lot of Granite components. You can see all the Granite UI components here, foundation, Coral foundation component. So one of the examples, all the components have this configuration, I will show you. But if I go to tabs, I'll say two level of render condition check. First, as such, whether the tab should be displayed or not. So for that, this is the check. If this tab itself is hidden, so then this will not be get displayed. This is the check. Now individual elements or resource, whether it's enabled or not, so that will be checked through this dot cmb get render conditions for individual element. All these components are having. If you see our form components, so all those form components are having. So but individual components, if you go, you may not find it. If I go to maybe multi-field, I don't know, I was finding something. Yeah, if you go to this component, this is not having it. Yeah, if you see, it's not there. Why means this component is inherited, or the base resource type is of type field. So if you go to the field, so field, yeah, 1 second. Yeah, this is the field. If I go to the field and go to the field.jsp, though this condition is here. Yeah, so get render condition resource. So whenever you want to build a new or custom Granite UI component, this would be taken care. So explicit.
Also another option is we can overlay the render conditions if required. The out of the box are the AEM render conditions, whatever we were earlier referring. So those can be overlaid and we can apply the custom logic. Let's say I want to overlay the specific render conditions, libs, CQ, GUI, components, render conditions is locked. So you can create the same node structure here in apps, under apps, CQ, GUI, components, render conditions is locked. Then this JSP, you can modify like whatever the logic you want here. You can apply your custom logic. So this will get applied because you are overlaying the libs one. Yeah, this will help you like whenever required to modify the out of the box functionality and you need some customization, you can follow this.
Yeah, this concludes the video. Render condition is one of the nice feature in AEM that helps us to display the Granite UI based elements based on the specific conditions. You can use the out of the box render conditions, or you can even build custom render conditions. Also, like you can hide or show the admin UI elements based on the render conditions. Thanks all for watching the video. See you in the next video.